Look, I'm gonna show you. See this little microphone here? It says mute over the top.
Where?
Right here.
Oh,
Yes.
I see. Okay. So
Oh, okay. How does that sound? Do I need to put headphones on, Chris? Mr. Chris? I guess. I don't know. Maybe not. Chris, do I need to put headphones on?
no.
We'll get there. You have to wear yours though.
Oh, okay.
That way we hear what he's saying to us.
It'd be hard to do this.
That way I can't get my signals from you, right? Just say, stop talking now.
No,
Can you
it's
hear
not.
that? Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Teri Goldner, and I am delighted to be here to host the Ralph Bailey Show today. It makes me feel like I'm a rock star being on on his show today. And I have some wonderful, wonderful guests that I want to talk to you about, and I'm going to introduce my first one in just a minute. But today we're going to talk about some really interesting things. We're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about love. We're going to talk about transgenderism. We're going to talk about labor law, all related in one big, giant 3-hour discussion. So it's going to be fun, I promise. And I don't know if, Chris, were you able to set up that song that I liked, that first one? No, the other song. The one, cover of the Rolling Stone. Okay, thank you. So I had a special song that I wanted to be kind of the cover song today. It's called The Cover of the Rolling Stone. I don't know how many of you have heard that before, but it's one of my favorite songs. And we'll play it in just a minute for you. But the reason I asked him to play it was because this is my first time to host Ralph's show. It makes me feel like I'm now on the cover of Rolling Stone, at least for local radio. Would you say that's true, Chris? Oh, I don't know, but it's really, it's kind of scary to be on here for 3 whole hours. So I hope I'm able to entertain, but also educate, and we'll have a really fun first hour. So I'd like to introduce my first guest, someone who is very near and dear to my heart, attorney Jay Rosenleid. Jay is a partner at the law firm of Klein, DiNatale, Goldner. He's been in Bakersfield he's actually from Bakersfield. He grew up in Bakersfield. And he went to college down south. He went to law school. Where'd you go to law school, Jay?
San Francisco.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
And
Hastings.
He is a fantastic attorney. He has wonderful experience and expertise in labor law, which is what I want to talk about. And I know that sounds really boring, but you're going to be surprised that this is far from boring, what we're going to talk about. We're going to start by talking about the astronomer case. Do you all remember that? That's the case of the CEO who got busted on the kiss cam at a Coldplay concert in, I think it was in Massachusetts, in a big forum in Massachusetts, in a big concert hall. And when the kiss cam showed him, he had this young woman that he was holding. He was embracing her, and she was leaning back against him, and they were clearly quite cuddly. And when the camera came on them, the woman put her hands to her face and spun around out of the camera view, and the man sunk down out of view of the camera, and it was very funny, actually.
The duck, forever etched in history.
Absolutely. And what happened was somebody put it on YouTube or put it on social media, and it actually went viral. And as a result of that one little moment on the kiss cam, he is no longer employed as the CEO of a $1 billion company. She is no longer employed as the head of the HR Human Relations Department
How
of this
good?
company.
How good can they get? HR heading it
HR,
up.
Human Resources. You get all this exciting stuff in there. I think she's called the People Department or the Department of People or something like that. So it's kind of a funny way to name an HR department, but
Yeah.
that's what she is. And he also, I believe his wife has also sued him for divorce. Not positive
Really?
about that, but he's
Wow.
he's in a whole heap of trouble. He's unemployed, facing all kinds of things. And now he is considering and making many threats to sue Coldplay, which was the concert he was at.
What?
The venue of
Invasion of privacy. Come on, you were
that's
in a luxury box. Come on.
well, that's exactly what he's threatening to sue him for, is invasion of privacy, because Chris Martin, who is the lead singer of the group Coldplay, Gwyneth Paltrow's ex-spouse, I might add, if you're into pop culture.
Goop.
Goop.
Yeah.
You ever see, and you know what Goop is?
Well,
I'm impressed.
wandered into a Goop store. Melanie and I wandered into a Goop store in Brentwood.
Oh my gosh. I've been
and
to that Goop store in that little country market.
yes, exactly. And have you ever felt like a guppy put out on the sidewalk gasping for air? That's where we were. That's what we were doing. What
Is
are we
that
doing
because you
here?
didn't know about Goop?
We just wandered in, thought, oh my goodness, there are wonderful tablecloths in here.
Yeah. Did you find like the dry skin brushes and all the ointments and ink, all the stuff they have in there?
All that stuff. And then there was this other room off to the side that we did not venture into. But the people at the store, running the store, they looked like they had just sucked on lemons and said, what is this couple doing in here?
Oh,
These are
no.
not our demographic.
Were you too old?
Well,
You weren't dressed right?
we weren't, yeah, let's put it that way. We weren't dressed right.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
very funny. Well, you know, your wife is beautiful, so
Thank
they're
you.
crazy if they think that you're not the right demographics. I'll say that. So Gwyneth is actually involved in this thing because she came on, I think, on a commercials and kind of an intro for a spokesperson for another organization, kind of talking about be careful when you're seen in public. I think she was kind of teasing her ex-husband.
Well, and here's the deal. My understanding, okay, which is based on nothing other than bits and pieces, is that Coldplay, in fact, said, hey, everybody out there in the audience, you know, the live crowd at the venue, we're going to turn on the kiss cam. Here you go. What more? You buy tickets
Yes.
to a public venue, and then they tell you they're going to put you on.
Well, you don't know for sure if you're going to be the person that's going on the kiss cam. It's
Yeah.
just maybe there's a possibility that out of all the
Yeah.
tens of thousands of people there, you might be the two that get caught.
And camera guy says, oh, here's a loving couple.
They were handsome. They were cute. He wanted to put them on the camera.
That they must be some people important because they're in a VIP, suite, the
That's
whole
right.
deal. Why not?
Well, tell me, Mr. Rosenleib, tell us, does the CEO, the chief executive officer of this company, who no longer works there, does he have a claim for invasion of privacy or any other claim arising out of his employment related to this?
So the question is, was he forced to resign? Now, my understanding is that he resigned. Now, there's always, something in the background where Bobby is my every employee.
Is he the bad Bobby?
Yeah,
Good Bobby?
bad Bobby, good Bobby, usually bad Bobby.
Bad Bobby.
And then of course, my every employee in the past has been Gridley. So we'll go ahead and use Gridley because I bet
Is
you
Gridley good Gridley or
bad
Gridley?
Gridley can be anything.
Okay.
But have you ever met someone named Gridley?
Never.
Okay, so I'm not going to be offending anybody. Hopefully, here's the. I don't know how we got to that. Your question was what? Does he have a claim?
Do you think he has any kind of a claim? Let's start out with, does he have a claim against the venue, against the place where the concert was held? And then secondarily, does he have a claim against Coldplay because of what Chris Martin said?
Okay, so let's take the venue first, the Kiss Cam.
Right.
here's a pro tip to people who go to public events: read the fine print on the back of the ticket. It says, "We can use your image for any darn thing that we want to."
Is that true of any forum, you think?
Every time I've been to something that's in the fine print in the back, and then they announce it. So, that's a thing. Now, what did the guy from Coldplay say?
He said something to the effect of, "Look at that lovely couple. Oh my, they must either be very shy or they're having an affair."
Oh,
And that's when they went, "Poof."
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what he said.
I mean, just speculation. And that's all it is.
Well,
he didn't say they are having an affair.
True. He just said they look like they might be.
Yeah.
But it turns out it was true.
Yeah. Well, we don't know if they were actually having an affair. We know that he was really, kind of embarrassed. It
playing
was
snugly with one of his employees.
It looked
Do you
almost.
think that was an affair, Jay?
I don't know, but it almost looked like one of those cartoons where the guy or gal sticks their head out the door, looks both ways, and then runs down. You hear the tinkly triangle music as they run down the hall trying to escape, and I mean, it was the same thing. It's the same thing, but oh well.
So you're saying, though, by virtue of the fact that he's in a public place, that he really doesn't have a claim for invasion of privacy, so to speak, because you walk into a place like that, your image, your likeness, your voice, it's all fair game for the public. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. In a public venue, the expectation is nothing is private. Okay, now if this was in his living room and they left the drapes open, or if it was some other sort of place where there was an expectation of privacy, okay, there might be a claim. The other piece, and this is where Magistrate Goldner gets involved in the program today.
That's magistrate judge.
The magistrate
Former
judge.
magistrate judge.
Yeah. Is, there are different rules that apply if you're a public figure, right?
Yes.
Now, this guy was CEO of $1 billion company.
Well, now you're switched over to defamation, right?
Yeah.
But on the invasion of privacy part, you think he's just SOL. He has no hope.
Yes.
What I've read is that he's gone around shopping for lawyers, looking for somebody to tell him if he has a legitimate
Keep shopping,
claim.
pal. Keep shopping.
Keep shopping. No good. If he came to you, you would say, "I'm sorry. It's not
No
gonna
bueno.
work." So let's talk about, so for defamation.
Yeah.
What would he have to show for defamation?
Well, he'd have to show a false statement, and he would have to demonstrate that there was. The defense would be that he was a public figure of some kind.
Well, but do you think he is a public figure?
It's really good question, in the sense that are CEOs public figures?
I think that's a wobbler.
It's a wobbler. Okay, is Jeff Bezos a public figure? Okay.
I think he is.
Is Elon Musk a public figure?
Definitely.
It was Bill Gates a public figure.
For
Okay,
sure.
So there are CEOs and there are CEOs, right? And I could start my own company and be a CEO, but that would be kind of ridiculous.
I think that this CEO of Astronomer, or I should say former CEO, is a public figure now by virtue of all the millions of people that have watched these hits on social media.
Oh, sure. And let's keep in mind that there is nothing new about this. I mean, it's always titillating. It's always a lot of fun. But let's go back to, what was it, 1987, okay? Gary Hart, Donna Rice on the good ship Monkey Business.
Was that the sailboat?
That was the sailboat, and they were canoodling on the aft deck of the Monkey Business.
The aft deck.
Well, I don't know. Yeah.
Is that the front or the back?
I'm not wearing a sailor's hat. I don't know. I just made it up. But
so they were busted by was photographers.
Yeah, they
paparazzi.
They were actually being pursued by paparazzi. There's no question. He'd already run for president. He'd been a senator. Blah 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 blah. So he was a public figure, and there was some wisps of smoke, and a newspaper had previously followed her arrival from Miami to the airport in Washington, D.C., and then followed her to his house, where they sort of staked out the place.
That
And
sounds pretty invasive.
well, they didn't. They just, she was walking into his place, and then she never came out. Okay, time ran, sun came up, sun went down, sun came up, and they ran with the story that she spent the night. The problem was, okay, there was a back door. And so there's always sort of a explanation to things. And it was along the lines of, well, no one was covering the back door. She might have left by the back door. We need to give allowances for this. In any event, that was like 40 years ago, right? Let's concentrate on the.
And he lost the election. Well,
Oh,
he lost. Did he lose because of that?
Yeah. There was back in a more prim and proper time.
That's right.
Okay.
So if he was a public figure, then under defamation law, in order for someone to be liable, they would have to show actual malice.
Yeah.
And do you remember the definition of actual malice under defamation?
Help me out.
It's not that you intend to do somebody ill will, like I don't like them and I want to be mean to them.
Yeah.
It's that you knew or should have known that it was false and you didn't do anything about it. It's that kind of thing. Sort of that reckless, it's beyond just negligence. It's being really kind of bad.
Let's take that forward to the astronomer CEO deal. Okay, where Coldplay says, the lead for Coldplay says, gee, they're really having a great time, or maybe they're having an affair. Okay.
He was joking.
Yeah.
He laughed. He went, ha ha ha.
Yeah. And was there sort of the malice there? Because he had no idea. He had no idea whatsoever. But the important thing is, and we can talk about this a little bit later, and that is, you know what? If you're going to mess around, you got to understand that there are digital footprints everywhere. There are digital fingerprints everywhere. You leave those things, footprints, fingerprints, palm prints, everything.
In ways that there weren't before.
In ways that there weren't before. Everybody's life is videoed and so on. So,
and when we come back after the break, we can talk all about that, because we're going to talk about, when does somebody have an expectation of privacy in their workplace? Lots of fun stories about that. So check back after the news and we'll pick right back up again.
I love it. Just the back and forth.
So right to privacy.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
That dog does not want to be petted. Just a little heads up before something bad happens. Move your coffee cup away from your computer. Oh, no. So you can have more control. Stop. You're touching your boss.
So we're going to have dinner at Mexicali tonight.
Well, life doesn't always give you
Good
time
stuff.
to change.
Dinner at Mexicali tonight. Whole family.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. We go out
Nice.
every Tuesday night.
Oh, that's so nice. I love Mexicali.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Where the menu hasn't changed in 65 years.
I love their food, though. It's great, don't you think? All those family recipes.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're getting ready. We have 1 minute left, so we can just talk for a second. So I'm thinking we'll talk about this whole concept of electronic monitoring, just like we talked about.
Yeah.
We'll just
Yeah.
let it flow. It'll be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
You know, I was really surprised at all the things you told me about.
Oh,
I had no idea
yeah.
that they could do all this stuff. One of the things I want to bring up is, what about if you're in a beauty salon and there's cameras
Yeah.
and there's audio in the cameras, the right to privacy of the customers,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
as well as the
Yeah.
people that work there.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of interesting.
Well, that's a GP line thing. Yeah, because the clients.
You know, we're on now. We're not on silent right now.
Oh, no.
But I was thinking about that because when I went to get my hair done, I looked up and I saw some cameras.
Yeah.
You okay with that if I bring it in that context?
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Hey.
Okay. Baseball. Isn't that a fun song? I see Chris over there. He's smiling. I think he likes it. Do you know how old that song is, Chris? Pretty old. Probably older than you, but isn't it a fun song? Oh, that's all right. If Ralph is watching or if Ralph is listening, thank you, Ralph, for letting me host today and making me feel like I've been on the cover of Rolling Stone. So thank you very much. So I'm back here with Jay Rosenlieb, a partner at Klein & Teri Goldner, and we were talking about defamation and the right of privacy. And, you know, I recently went to, I think a lot of women out there might be able to understand this. I went to the beauty salon and I looked up and I saw that there were cameras. And I was wondering, do they have the right to put cameras in a business like that? And what if there are, for example, what if there's audio, if they pick up the audio in the cameras? Are there cameras that do that do just that can pick up the sound and pick up the visuals?
Yeah, you can do it either way. Okay. Now, the question is, can a business, can an employer
Right.
take
Let's talk
video?
Let's talk about it in the workplace.
In the
because
workplace? Yeah.
Hopefully, you know, most of our listeners are employed or they employ other people. So
Yeah.
we can take it from both perspectives, the employer and the employee, whichever one you want to go first.
Yeah.
What are the rules about this whole concept of electronic monitoring in the workplace?
Yeah, really good. And there is a fundamental separation between the two, video and audio. There are other monitorings that take place, and we can talk about those in a minute. But, you know, I come at it from the perspective of a lawyer representing employers, okay? And so what can an employer do to monitor productivity? What can an employer do to monitor interactions with a customer? What can an employer do to quality assurance, things of that nature? Well, what we know is that an employer can, as long as the cameras are open and obvious. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to take a step back from that.
Open and obvious.
Open and obvious. The camera is, you know, right there.
I see
We
the
can see
YouTube
it.
camera right there.
Yep,
That's
yep.
open and obvious.
That's open and obvious.
Chris is back there laughing. I
yeah.
hope so. If it's not, I'm not doing my job.
But the law is just as clear over on the audio side of things. And you know this from having practiced law yourself, and that is that California is a two-party consent state,
Yes.
which means that before there is any monitoring or recording of audio, all the parties to the conversation need to consent to it.
So you're saying even if they're just listening, as
Yeah.
opposed to listening and
Yeah.
recording.
Yeah.
Even just for somebody listening to someone's conversation,
Yeah.
there has to be consent.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why it would be separated from each
Sure.
other,
Sure.
although
Sure.
recordings can later be used in court. We'll
Yeah.
follow up with what goes on in court and some of these other really interesting electronic monitoring issues in 5 minutes after the break. Okay, we are back with Jay Rosenlieb of Klein, Teri Goldner et al. And I am really happy to have Jay here as my guest. We're talking about the right to privacy and the right to privacy in the workplace. You know, there's one right to privacy in public, so to speak, but then there's also a whole different notion of when you're at work, what can an employer do to monitor what you're doing at work? And there's kind of a couple different ways of monitoring. I'm talking about monitoring. We'll first start out by monitoring your productivity. And usually, I think, don't you see that in people that work remotely from home?
And this is one of those collisions where COVID, people working from home, right?
Yes.
And then technology and all that it develops, and the collision between following your workers who WFH, work from home.
WFH.
WFH, that's our new acronym for
Putting
the
that
day.
on my decoder ring.
Yeah. And so you know, the employer says, wait a second, I've got to be able to know what Gridley's doing at home. Gridley's no longer reporting. I can't walk by his cube. I can't
Right.
see her interact in a a conference room or something like that. I got to monitor. I got to figure out what's doing. And so we start with the call centers, okay?
Oh, yes.
And the software for monitoring, a lot of folks don't know this, but a lot of call center employees, in fact, that's one of the big places where it's work from home, okay? Because of all the technology, boom, you can just send the calls out to wherever and set it up that way. And the question is Gridley making toast, or is Gridley answering phone calls?
Is Gridley in the bathtub?
Is Gridley in the bathtub, or is Gridley with Donna Rice? You never know.
So what do you do if you're the employer?
So
You trust Gridley, right?
yeah, you trust Gridley, and or you in the case of a call center, you implement software that tracks how much time was the employee idle, how much time was the employee off duty, how much time was the employee engaged in a incoming call, how much time was the employee engaged in an outgoing call, et cetera, et cetera. And all this data then can be crunched and matched up to determine how busy Gridley and Gridley's coworkers have been in call centers. So that sort of software has been around for a long time.
So you can actually tell, if you're the employer, when somebody like that is dialing out or receiving in.
Yeah.
And how
yeah.
long that conversation is.
How long the call lasted.
Can you
Yeah.
tell if they're talking to a customer or if they're talking to their BFF, their best friend?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you that the software is such that how long did the phone ring before there was an answer?
Oh, interesting.
All sorts of stuff.
So
okay.
if Gridley's on the other side of the house and it takes a long time to answer the phone, you know something's up.
Yeah, something's wrong. So then what happens is that employers start looking at things like what are the keystrokes on the keyboard? And there's something called key logging software where it tracks what keys the employee, Gridley, has entered onto the keyboard.
You mean they can actually tell what words you've typed on the computer?
What words, what commands, control, whatever it is.
That seems pretty invasive to me.
Well,
like my boss is
a clown.
Yes.
or words to that effect, right?
So he would know if you were typing that.
Yeah.
Just kidding, boss.
Yeah. And then it goes and keystroking key logging software has been around for a long time.
And so how?
And so then the next piece, okay, is some employers want to know and use the movement of a mouse and the clicks on a mouse as a proxy for what kind of work is Gridley
And the
doing.
point is the mouse is where it takes you, you know where they're going on the screen.
Yeah.
You know what websites they're going to, or you know what are they typing a Word document, or are they online at some porn site?
You're right.
Wow.
So a combination between keystroking or key logging software, keystroking software, as well as mouses. They can tell where you are and what websites you're resting on, and
That's
so on.
amazing. Tell me why that's not a violation.
Why should it be?
Well, I mean, is it
It's
really okay for
the-
your employer to
see,
know what you're doing
okay.
all the time?
Now, I represent employers, right? So it's
I'm
kind
going
of
to
like,
represent the employees now.
okay, go for it. But it's my computer, it's my software, and I'm paying you.
I'm paying you for 8 hours a day or
Yeah,
7
8
hours a day.
Now, what you do on your lunch break, that's you.
Yes.
What you do on your 10-minute breaks, that's you. At the end of the day, when you clock out, that's you. Before you clock in the morning, that's you. But when I'm paying you, you're using my software, you're using my internet, you're using my hardware. I want to know what you're doing and how productive are you?
Well, do I have the right to expect that I would have some sense of privacy at work? Me as the employee.
Yeah. Certainly in some areas and in some regards, for example, restrooms, changing rooms, and the law is developing in this area. And so glad you brought this up, Teri.
Wait, before you go there, can I
Yeah.
ask you one other question?
Yeah,
Because I was
yeah.
really intrigued by it. You're talking about the mouse
Yeah,
moving
the-
around and them being able to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever figured out how to get around that?
So let's say that Gridley, okay,
Right.
wants to
Gridley
go to
the goofball.
Yeah, Gridley the goofball wants to go for a longer break while he or she is supposed to be doing work. And that mouse, while they're on break, is just going to be sitting there. And the employer is going to say, Gridley, no keystrokes, no mouse movement. What were you doing? Okay.
Sleeping.
Sleeping. Or so what Gridley can do, there's actually devices out there. They're called,
Mouse somethings?
mouse jigglers.
Mouse jigglers.
Yeah. There you
Mouse
go.
jiggle. It just
WFH and now mouse jigglers.
okay, I'm putting that back on the decoder ring.
Yeah. And they're devices that will, I don't know if they're battery powered or outlet or gasoline
Wow.
powered. I have no idea, but they'll jiggle the mouse.
I mean, they move it around on the desk
Yeah,
on the mouse
yeah.
pad?
So it looks
My
like
God.
something's going on.
Well, that's cheating.
Well,
That's definitely cheating. Have you ever come across a situation where an employee used a mouse jiggler? Mouse jiggler, not a mouth jiggler.
I have not come across a mouse jiggler case.
Where do they even get those things? Maybe we shouldn't say.
I don't know, but I'm sure there's some of your listeners who are
looking up mouse jigglers right now.
Yeah, right.
Are they against the law?
I don't know that they're against the law. Okay. Now it may be contrary to employer policy.
Yes.
Okay. It may be, is it making a false statement? Well, is an action a false statement?
Well,
I
it's
don't
kind
know.
of like, I think it's sort of like stealing time
Yeah.
from your employer. If
Yeah.
you're supposed to be working and you have some device that makes it look like you're not working,
Yeah.
that's really dishonest. And
Yeah.
that's really time theft, at least
So-
to me.
Yeah. And so here's what's happening in this whole privacy area of the law is that, like I said, there's this collision between what started as work from home and now it's working in the office, and technology development, where employers are able to monitor employee actions and conduct and productivity and quality with the use of technology. And so guess what? Your friend, the legislature of the state of California
My friend.
has now decided that it wants to become involved.
Really?
Yeah. And
Are they coming down on the side of the employer or the employee?
they're coming down on the side of the employee. Okay.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Well, what would you expect from the world's largest high school project? And
Are you calling the legislature a high school project?
only some of them. There's a narrow band of people who are in the legislature, he and she, who do a wonderful job, and I love them, and there's just not enough of them.
So we're excluding Vince Vaughn from that.
We're excluding Vince Vaughn, we're excluding Shannon, we're
Very good.
excluding Stan.
Very good.
Yeah.
So but why are they doing this? Why are they getting involved in it? Isn't it enough to say, you're in the employer's workplace, you're using his time, you're using his equipment, you are paid for your work, and let him discipline you if he needs to do so.
Having watched legislation in the California Assembly and Senate for over 2 or 3 decades now, there is no end to micromanage, the desire to micromanage the workplace. There's a new piece of legislation. It's working its way. It's actually worked its way through the Assembly. It's now in the Senate, AB 1331, which creates greater restrictions and rights for employees when an employer is becoming, at least in the eyes of the legislature, a little overbearing when it comes to electronic monitoring in the workplace. And so the piece of legislation says, you know what, you're not going to have cameras in bathrooms. You're not going to have cameras in break rooms, changing rooms, things of that nature, lactation areas.
Well, that makes sense. Do employers really have cameras in those areas?
I actually have had a lactation room case where there was a camera.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. That's not good.
Yeah. Not good at all.
Lactation as in breastfeeding.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
My goodness. What happened in that case? Did they,
Well, it was.
did they settle it?
It actually went nowhere. And it was a situation where it was a temporary area that had been set aside because one of the employees was lactating. So they said, okay, this area for that. Well, it was also an employer that had a lot of cameras. Okay.
I see.
And because this was a temporary area, Gridley forgot to make sure that when Sally went into the lactation area, that the camera on that area that had been temporarily set up as a lactation area, make sure that it got shut off.
Well, that sounds like just an accident.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I hope so.
We hope so. We hope so. And the
interesting.
case wound up going nowhere, and that's fine, and that's great. But yeah, I mean, stuff like that happens. Okay. And what it does, it then prompts legislation like AB 1331, where the legislature comes in and says, oh, there are these abuses, there are these possibilities. And so we need to, A, make sure that employers know they can't do it, and B, create penalties if they do it. Okay. So, for example, many of your listeners out there know of this word PAGA. Private.
PAGA,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's one of Shannon Grove's favorite words.
It's one of Shannon's
Goes on the
favorite
decoder
words.
ring.
Yeah. And AB 1331 creates a new action under PAGA, which is any violation, if this is enacted, any violation of this workplace surveillance legislation will then create a right under PAGA, $500 a day for any violation.
Oh boy. And does the victim, so to speak, the employee, get compensated?
The employee will get, and the employee's lawyer will get 25% of whatever the penalties are. The
Oh my
state gets the
goodness.
other 75%.
Wow. The
Yeah.
state gets the other
The state gets it.
75%.
Yeah.
Now, why would the state get that?
Because these are, what the private attorney is doing is suing on behalf of the state.
So it's private attorney general kind of
Yeah.
play,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Like we talked about.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But
But do you think so you're saying you don't really think it's necessary in the first place? It's overkill by the legislature.
yeah, it's overkill. And let me say this: the proposed legislation, okay, a sure sign that the legislature is certainly the internet and they have no idea what's next. Okay. There is a specific piece of this legislation, and I'll just read it to you. An employer shall not require a worker to get this. The legislation doesn't say get this, but it shall not require a worker to physically implant a device that collects or transmits data, including a device that is installed subcutaneously in the body.
Ooh, that kind of sounds like that Black Mirror show
The-
on cable. Wow.
Yeah,
Seriously.
yeah,
Have
yeah.
you ever heard of that happening?
I've
in real
never
life?
heard.
Implant your chip in your
Yeah,
hand to
Yeah,
go to work.
yeah, or put some kind of a sensor on your arm or something of that nature that monitors whatever, where you are.
Well, I could actually, I mean, this sounds kind of weird, but I could actually see maybe putting something under your skin to be able to access your house or your
Well, you're
or
never
your
gonna
place of employment. You
you're
just
never
take
gonna leave
out.
it at home.
That's true. That's true. So it's a crime, or is it a crime, or it's just a penalty?
It's a civil penalty.
Boy,
yeah.
oh boy.
It's a civil penalty.
And could the employee also sue for invasion of privacy?
Yep.
In addition to
Yep.
under this new statute?
Yep.
Wow.
And so the architecture of this legislation is that it's trying to look to the future and say, hey, whatever developments there are in,
I think I hear a cell phone. Uh-oh. I went.
whatever developments there are in technology for monitoring the workplace, this piece of legislation is trying to be ahead of it.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And where is it? You said it's winding its way up the
Wind-
food chain in the legislature.
It's
Where is
passed the assembly and it's
Oh.
now in Senate committees. Now,
Hmm.
California tends to look at legislation. The legislature looks at legislation for 2 or 3 legislative cycles before they actually send it to the governor to sign. We don't know what the governor's position is on this piece of legislation. He rarely announces in advance what his position is, unless it's a high-profile thing that says, where he says, I want the legislature to immediately send me legislation to.
I'm going to guess that all the unions are in favor of this.
Absolutely, they are.
And all the employers are against this?
Chamber of Commerce is against it. Employers are
Wow.
against
It's a
it.
big
Yeah.
long list of people opposing it,
Yeah.
but it's not going to, you think it's not going to make a difference. It's going to get enacted.
Don't know at this point, but stay tuned.
Oh, that is so interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
A little bit scary, but a little bit good though. On one hand, I don't want anybody going into the lactation room if I'm breastfeeding. No way. I get that. Thank you, legislatures, for that. But I don't know that we really need something like that, because it's common sense that you shouldn't be able to surveil people in private places like that. What
Yeah.
about break rooms? Can
Well,
we talk about break rooms
let's-
after the break?
Let's talk about break rooms after the break.
Break rooms after the break. Chris, is this time for a break? Very good. We'll see you all after the break. Call us if you have any questions. Thank you. Okay, we're not back on the air, but we're back on YouTube.
YouTube. All right.
I'm not sure how much longer we have. I'm looking at the camera up
Yeah.
there.
Not much.
It's gone so fast.
Oh, it has. And we got 4:01 down here.
Uh-oh. I think we
I
look
think
at that
that's
one.
the official game clock.
Yeah. He's getting ready. Okay, we are back after the break, and we want to talk really quickly about break room privacy. Or we know about there's bathroom privacy, but break room privacy.
Yeah.
Do you have privacy in your break room at work?
Well, arguably you do. Without this legislation, AB 1331, you have privacy under the National Labor Relations Act in break rooms and in cafeterias. The idea is that the employer shouldn't be able to say, oh, look who's sitting at the same table for the 5th day in a row. Those same 3 employees, I bet they're plotting against me. And so cafeterias.
That's a paranoid employer.
Yeah. So there is some law under the National Labor Relations Act that says you can't put cameras in break rooms and cafeterias. It would be express under AB 1331 that you cannot put cameras in those areas because it impairs employees engaging in concerted action. They don't want to be seen with each other because the employer might find out.
Oh, that's
they're
interesting.
conspiring.
So as far as cameras in the workplace go, the rule is as long as it's open and obvious,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. And unless 1331 gets enacted, and
Except
then
for these private spaces or
Yeah.
these excluded spaces.
Yeah, let's call them
Got it.
excluded spaces. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, we have just a few minutes left.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah.
give us a little idea of sort of a case that you've seen or you've dealt with or heard about that what was like the worst abuse of these right to privacy or the best, just some interesting cases that you've dealt with.
Yeah.
I love the lactation room one. That was good.
I mean, that was just a mess up.
Yeah.
Was what that was. It was just a mess up. What we've run into in other instances is where an employer, without advice of counsel, decides that it would be a swell idea to hack into an employee's private email account.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
That's a no-no.
That is a no-no beyond description. There are federal laws there. There are state laws there, statutory as well as case law.
What if they think the employee is stealing from them?
Call law enforcement. Let them do the work.
But don't hack into your employee's email.
Absolutely not. Let's get a search warrant. But there are other things. There's if the employee is corresponding on the employer text message system, SMS, Slack, or email system, about, hey, I'm going to send out the formula for Coca-Cola on text message or something of that nature. That's a problem. That's a big problem. There's no right to privacy there.
What's the worst case of an employee, you think, abusing things under the privacy scenario?
Of an employee
being a bad employee in this area. Anything come to mind?
I don't know, but let me suggest this. If you go to a concert, take your wife. If you're going to take your girlfriend, make sure you don't have a wife.
There you go. That is the takeaway from today. When you go to a concert, you have no right to privacy. Sorry, CEO.
must have been deaf.
Welcome back. This is Teri Goldner sitting in for Ralph, the cover of the Rolling Stone today. That's my my cover for today. Then I'm here with somebody who is incredibly important in our community, incredibly important to me and to my husband for all the contributions that he's made to our community. And it is my honor to have as my next guest, Craig Harrison. Thank you, Craig, for being here.
What an introduction.
It's
I love
true.
it. Thank
It's
you.
True.
Thank
What
you,
a
Terry.
gush.
I was really excited when you invited me, even though I miss Ralph, and I hope he's enjoying his birthday weekend. Or
I think
whatever.
he's listening or
Okay.
watching. What do you think,
He
Chris?
should be.
Did he say he was going to listen or not?
Good, good.
Hi, Ralph.
Good to see you, Ralph, or hear from you.
You know, one of the things, I met you for the very first time. I don't know if you remember this, a long time ago. It was probably back in, I'm going to say 1990, when I first went on the bench in Kern County Superior Court. I was a Superior Court Commissioner, and they put me in charge of the probate calendar. And being in charge of the probate calendar meant that you were also in charge of the guardianship calendar. And I met you the first time you came into court for a guardianship.
Right.
And I remember thinking, what's a priest doing wanting to have a guardian over somebody? But as part of the guardianship process, you have to go through a very thorough vetting process by the courts and by the agencies. And by the end of it, I was convinced, after I got the report and talked to the people who had met you and looked into your life, that you would make a perfect guardian. And so I remember.
I do remember too, because, you know, as you know, since then I had adopted 8 children, and
That's
I was
right.
very young. And
I think I did your first guardianship.
You did.
And I
You
just,
did.
and now when I
That
see
was
your
Roy.
family, I am just so happy to see how large your family is. Will you tell us a little bit about your
yeah,
family?
Roy was the one, and he was at that time 11. I was 21, and he's 56 years old now.
Oh my gosh.
So
You're
I
making
have,
me feel old.
I have 8 children, and I have 19 grandchildren. And my
Wow.
grandchildren are from 29 down to 11.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm very blessed because I have a close relationship with all of them. So I see them or talk to them almost every day.
Well, I see you around town with them a lot.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
last time I saw you was in, I think it was in Wool Growers.
That's
And
our
you were
hangout.
having a great family dinner. It was fun to see you with them.
Yeah.
You're all laughing and having a good time together.
Yeah,
It was
so it was a
nice.
great, and it has been in their life and in mine. You know, that there were lots of ups and downs, but they all turned out to be wonderful, good Christians, citizens, workers. You know, so they're all giving back to the community, which I like.
Well, I feel very special and blessed to be able to have been part of the beginning of all of that. So I also am very happy to know that you have written a book called
Yeah.
Coffee with Jesus. And my husband showed this to me because you gave him a copy of it.
I did
This
because
is wonderful.
You know,
Coffee
after
with Jesus.
Coffee with Jesus. And I didn't even notice it until after they did it, that the smoke spells Jesus on the cover with the
Does
coffee.
it? Oh, it does.
But yes, so that
Did
was
you did you do the cover or did
no,
somebody else?
an artist did. My grandson pointed out to me, like, after
Aw.
I'd probably given out or sold so many copies, he said, "Oh," and I said,
That is so
I'm not
nice.
observant." But I wrote that, started 6 years ago, when I went through probably one of the most difficult times in my life. And so I call it writing this during the dark night of the soul. And it's just 365 days of short reflections of how to get through the darkness and how to get into light to where I am today, 6 years later, which I'd say I'm probably in the best place I've ever been.
Well, you look terrific. I can tell
Wow,
you that.
thank you. I feel good. I feel good.
It's everybody goes through darkness, I think, in their lives at some point.
It's one of
Yours
the
was-
lessons that for me was difficult because suffering, really my life had been always pretty easy. I mean, I felt really good. I loved high school, loved college, had a great family, close family, graduated from UCLA, good jobs, decided to go into the priesthood.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I was working with some 2 troubled kids, and it was brought to my attention, we're going to have to institutionalize them. What if you became the guardian and did that? And so I did, and as it went through, I adopted others. And in the end, like I don't think I always felt like I had a golden life. Like I understood suffering. I had a brother that was sick and hospitalized for many years of his life and quadriplegic for a period. I lost a little brother. So I knew suffering, but not personal.
And I knew your beautiful sister, Nancy.
Yeah, and my sister died when she was 40.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, and so, the suffering for me was, I don't know, I just always felt God led me, and whatever I did, it was golden until 2019.
When
It
the
was like,
thing hit.
yeah,
Well, one of the things that is very important to me in the law and as a former judge is the concept of fairness and due process. And, there's two kinds of due process. There's substantive due process and procedural due process. Substantive due process is something where the government, the courts are supposed to protect certain important rights that people have. Procedural due process is equally as important, and it has to do with making sure that people have notice and an opportunity to be heard and a fair hearing. And I remember when I first heard about the difficulties that you were encountering with charges, with allegations being made against you from way back when, that I followed along in the papers. And I remember thinking, where is the due process in all of this? Because it didn't seem to me that there was any due process. And what I learned after researching it is there really is no due process for someone who's a priest or a Monsignor in the Catholic Church, because it's not governed by it's not governed by California law or federal law. It's governed by, for lack of the exact word for it, but it's governed by church law. Canonic law. And canonic law.
Well, and I didn't know it either. So you have to realize that.
Oh my gosh, canonic law is a whole different ball of wax. It is. It's not
it's
fair.
Church law, and
Is it okay to call it church law?
Right, church law, canon law.
Canon law.
I didn't understand any difference either. In fact, when all this happened, I've never in my life, still to this day, ever been charged with anything. So here comes these like false accusations, which never even knew about them. I get called in one day, 2 days after Easter, and I sit down with the bishop. And I had a guy with me who actually has 28 years of working in law enforcement, and he's part of the church. And he just happened to drive me down. I didn't expect anything. I didn't know, do they want me to do something else or whatever for somebody? So
it was just a regular day in
it
the
was
life
like
of
a Tuesday,
Craig.
right? And I go down. I go into this meeting. I go, oh, he's drove me down. Can he come in? Yep. So we go in, and I'm told, like right up front, well, I'm going to put you on administrative leave. And I go, well, why? What point? He said, I can't tell you. I said, you can't tell me. And we argued about that for quite some time. And then I said, well, what does that mean? And he'll say, I'm going to read a letter on Sunday at church. And I go, okay, what?
To
yeah,
your congregation?
To any congregation I'd ever been to.
Without telling you
and
in
I said,
advance what it's about.
I said, what's in the letter? He goes, I can't tell you. And I said,
and he never heard your side of it.
No, to this day, nobody from the Diocese of Fresno has ever spoken to me and asked me or done any question. So this has been 6 years. So I said, I don't know what this means. I said, well, do you guys help me through whatever? And he goes, no, you need to get a lawyer. And I said, well, can I call you? And he said, no, can't call us anymore. Have your lawyer call our lawyer. Gave me the name of their lawyer. Turned out it wasn't their lawyer. We called them.
So it sounds, so you don't even have the right to have the church pay for
Nothing.
your lawyer, like
No.
in state law, in California law, at least you get a public defender.
Yeah, bishops would get a lawyer, but priests no. So I called my friend Kyle Humphrey, and then my other friends, David Torres, and David Torres, and Sala, and Jared Thompson. All these guys said, hey, we've been your friends forever, but we're here for you. So
as I recall, there was I remember seeing on the television a large group of lawyers who were there. They were all surrounding you. It was like
they were protecting.
I'll call him Monsignor Craig's army. But even again, the laws that they are used to aren't the ones that apply.
Well, see, that's what happened is I thought, oh, okay, you told me to get a lawyer. I get a lawyer. I never got I've never, ever got another communication from the diocese. I would read about my stuff in the newspaper. It would say, like, the bishop says he can't wear black. The bishop says he can't travel. I'm going, I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. And
This is the first time you hear about these things.
and then the bishop left. He was there 2 days. He goes, we don't even have time to investigate what's going on because I'm leaving and a new bishop's coming. I'm going, okay, but you're going to read a letter and nobody's investigated it. And then a new bishop comes in and I didn't hear from him for 3 months. Now my life is spiraling. I'm out of ministry. I had threats on my life. I mean, all this is going on and I have nowhere to go to. I can't go to my church, who I served for. I was in the seminary 5 years and 35 years of ministry. And I was very just like, what do I do?
So you're just hanging out there in limbo.
In limbo.
So to speak.
And emotionally.
You can't.
The darkest
You're not
time of my life.
working. You're not doing anything.
Can't work.
Nobody's
Can't do
answering your
anything.
questions.
No. And I just keep reading the paper, more things. And then more letters are read to the people in the parish because it shifted my case. I think, and the diocese couldn't help it. I mean, they had their investigative person that did these cases. She was not experienced. She had no legal background. She had no, she had never had any law enforcement background. She just had gotten her degree, I believe, in women's studies, and which is fine. But what I'm saying, that's not for somebody who's investigating very serious accusations against a person. And later on, I mean, here she's supposed to be my representative. She was on the radio doing a talk show, and she talks about me and in a derogatory way. And then it spins again. And that's when it was like, I actually filed a lawsuit against her, but I didn't realize that when I filed.
You sued her for defamation.
Right. And when I put that lawsuit, I didn't realize that's also suing the bishop because she worked for the bishop. So it's that. So then all of a sudden, everything that was told to me was, I'm not being obedient because I'm not doing what they're telling me to do. So I had to get a canon lawyer. I have regular lawyers. So I get a canon lawyer in Washington.
Wait. How do you find a canon lawyer? Is
They're
it 1-800 canon law?
Well, they do have a directory. They
Okay.
do, and
Are there a lot of them?
yeah, like even in Bakersfield here, we have canon lawyers. Monsignor
Yeah.
Steve Frost was a canon lawyer. He's retired now.
Okay.
And
But
these
these are
guys,
not people with law degrees.
they have canon
do.
law degrees. They went to law school for canon law, church law.
Where do you go to law school?
They have one. They have them all over. There's one in Washington, D.C., and I think there a lot of them study in Rome.
Oh, interesting.
But it's all church law.
Do you have to be do you get a law degree in
Yeah.
canon law?
So they get, I forget what it's called, a
They take canon law
licentiate,
bar and all that
like a
stuff?
licentiate. Yeah, but I think they have all that.
I didn't
Yeah.
know
Well,
that.
either did I. So let me tell you. I mean, they make decisions about annulments and marriage and all of
Okay.
that.
Okay.
So here I am, and I'm like, don't know what's going on. And mentally, I'm in a dark place going this. What this did to my children and grandchildren. Thank God my parents had died right before, because I would have hated them to see this and go through it, and my friends and my parish. And so I go back to, I didn't realize that as a priest, I didn't really have civil rights. Like, I didn't have a right as a priest to sue this woman who did this because she was part of the church. So
You have, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, after
Mhm.
researching into canon law, you had absolutely no civil rights.
No.
None at all.
no, I didn't
None
know that though when I
whatsoever.
started all this.
And it looked to me like the law is that they have to do an investigation. It doesn't say what the investigation is going to be.
Or
And
who
all-
does it, or
Right. It just says the investigation has to conclude within a reasonable time frame. And typically that's 90 days, but not
Right.
always. It can be shorter.
and mine, a year gone by, and I hadn't heard anything.
It's just so ambiguous.
Right. And an investigation, supposedly what should have happened, according to original canon law, is if somebody makes an accusation, there's a full investigation. And you can be put on administrative leave, but not till after the investigation is concluded and they feel there could be something there. Well, there was no investigation. I was just suspended. And it was read out loud, a letter of this. So then they create this scandal with me. Okay. So then I'm running around, and then I'm supposed to go to a review board. So once the investigation's done, they take everything to a review board. Then I get to come in and tell my story.
After they've
They wouldn't even
already-
tell me the names of anybody. They just
Oh my goodness.
so
So you
then
didn't know who the witnesses were. You didn't know what they said. You don't know how old the claims are. You know
Nothing.
nothing, and there's no really meaningful ability to defend yourself.
and I never got to see this review board. I
Oh
was
my
told
goodness.
3 months after that I was supposed to meet with this review board, and they waited because I think they thought I was going to drop the lawsuit.
Oh my goodness.
And so, but I learned a lot about law, let me tell you.
Well, we'll keep talking about law after the break, and that what you're describing to me is a total absence of due process, and
Oh, yeah.
we'll follow up on that.
And I'm not the
in just a
first
couple
one
minutes.
that's had that.
Thank you.
Already 20 minutes.
We are back on the Ralph Bailey Show. This is Teri Goldner talking to Craig Harrison. We were just talking about church law and the lack of due process that you received in the issues that you dealt with. So you were talking about how you didn't even have any opportunity and no ability to present your side of the story before letters were read to the congregations.
Yes, I never, even to this day, I've not one person from the Diocese of Fresno has ever met with me, talked to me about anything. So I still don't even know what was there. I just knew nothing had ever happened. So I kept thinking, like, as soon as they meet with me, I'll be able to clarify or be able to say, that's just an angry person. And, I can show you this or whatever.
Surely they'll want to hear your side of the story.
Well, I thought that was how it worked.
How long did it take before you realized that wasn't going to happen?
It was 2 years.
Oh, my
And after
goodness.
2 years, it shifted from being about false accusations to being about obedience. And that's where I didn't understand again. I didn't understand the process. Even though I had people advising me, I just mentally couldn't put my hands on it. I thought, I've loved my church. I love serving. I still love my church. I still feel I serve my church. I just no longer, as a priest, I resigned. So now as a layperson, I feel I still visit sick people. I pray with people. I comfort people. I counsel people.
I want to emphasize that during this whole time, these years when you were having to go through this lack of due process, that no charges have ever been filed
No.
against you. No criminal charges at all whatsoever. Nothing, not a zip. But this whole time you're having to deal with a church law process that's not listening to you and not hearing your side of the story. So, and it didn't really tell you what kind of investigation they were going to do or include you or give you an ability to cross-examine any of the witnesses that they were relying on in their investigation. Is that correct?
Yeah, they were actually trying to keep the names. Later on, the diocese, I mean, it's almost, I felt like they put not just on me, but on any priest, they put like a ransom on us, or maybe called something else, where they offered money to people that you could come forward. And if you had an accusation against a priest, you tell them. They will never tell the priest. They will never go to court. We'll give you money, and you just sign a document that you will not be a part of a class action suit.
So there's paying
in the
people
future.
off in advance.
So, I mean,
That sounds like an advertisement to
well, it
make a
was.
false claim.
They made advertisements. So
They did advertise.
yes, they advertised on TV and everything. So I thought, like, oh my gosh, if somebody's angry at you or doesn't like you,
Oh boy.
yeah, even my kids, all of them said, you know what, we should all go in and we'll all get money, and then we'll have money to get the lawyer to pay for you to go. Yeah, I'm going, and the hard thing for me
Right, that
was
is
the
nuts.
pain that it caused, just not my kids, but my friends, my parish. I mean, St. Francis was the largest parish, I think, in the diocese at the time. And
And speaking of rock stars, you were the rock star at the time
wow.
of the priests, as I recall.
Well, I don't know about being a rock star. I can't sing, but I do believe that I loved my work, and the parish, the ministry spoke for themselves, and it was a living expression to me of Christ, because we had so many outreaches and involvement. And I think that's one of the devastating things. And I get it. The church, my church suffered. It covered up for years a very serious thing. The diocese had me counsel people who had been abused by priests. They would call and say, could you meet with this person, and blah, blah, blah. And I did.
This was before or after?
Before, like,
Okay.
So then I'm like, and I've known priests, and I've known priests who were guilty and priests who I think were just subject, because everybody got afraid and it became about money, all these big lawsuits. Before that, when I was a young priest, Bishop Steinbach was bishop, he went to court with priests. He would go with them. And his first question always was, he'd look at them and say, are you guilty or not guilty? And they had the ability to say, yeah. And then he still said, okay, then we got to get you got to go through the judicial system. You got to go through all that.
So
But we care about
supported
you.
them.
Yeah, but all that kind of has left. And then when it started getting up higher with things like McCarrick,
Oh, yes.
Cardinal McCarrick, and
Yes.
he's the one that wrote.
Let's talk about him in a little bit.
Sure.
We're going to take a break in about 5 seconds, but I think that's a really important component to this to talk about. We'll see you after the break.
Good.
Or that Welcome back to the Ralph Bailey Show. This is Teri Goldner speaking with Craig Harrison. We're having an interesting conversation. And I want to ask you just a couple questions, and then we're going to go kind of head into a different area. You mentioned before the break Cardinal McCarrick, and what do you think was his kind of peripheral role in all of
Well,
this?
I don't really get it. He was a cardinal, one of the highest levels in the church. In fact, he helped create some of the detours of following canon law that bishops could kind of skirt some of the law and get cases going and things like this. And he wrote all, and then he went to prison for child abuse. They went through the whole church court, all that, and was found guilty and went to prison. So
Was this in Italy?
yeah,
Oh my goodness.
so part of me says, like, what was the church, what is hiding? And when you say that, one of the things that comes back to me constantly is, and it's helped me, is regardless of anything, regardless of church law, which is hundreds of years old or 1,000 years old, however long they want to claim it, I always keep saying to myself, and I believe this, I am not a victim. I believe, if you believe in God, I believe that God allowed this in my life. I would never have chosen it for anybody. I have 2 priest friends that told me if this happened to them, they would have taken a gun and shot themselves.
I don't know how
And,
I would have handled
Well,
something like
and
that.
if I didn't have my children, family, and the friends that I have, I could tell you it could have been there, because it's dark. And that's why one reason why I like to help people in darkness. I deal with a lot of mothers right now that lost all their children, car accidents, fires, a lot of people with trauma and grief. And I think I understand, not to that level, but when it's attack on who you are. And I lived in this community. I've never left this community. I stayed in it.
You went to Bakersfield High School.
Of course, once a driller, always a driller, you know.
You're
And,
talking to a West High Five.
and I always say Jesus was a driller, but
Jesus was a driller.
yes. So I look back and I go, when you get victimized just because of injustice, we have a judicial system, and I don't understand it completely. Sometimes justice is served, and sometimes it's not. Injustice has happened from the day of Moses and the Pharaoh. There's been injustice. In the long run, I do believe God's justice is always served. So maybe I didn't get the outcome of hoping that the church would clear my name and validate it, or invite me back and welcome me, or even just say, I'm sorry for the way we handled this. I've had to look at it and say, it's a divine, to me, a divine institution run by human beings. And because of that, it falls short. It always falls short of the mark.
An institution is only as good as the people that are in it.
And I really work on the idea of letting go and forgiveness and all the things, because I made my commitment to God and I love my church. I still go to church, still live that. And I try to tell people, like, that's my calling, is to serve God. If the church at this point doesn't want me to do it as a priest, I had to accept that. That's why I had to resign.
As I understand it, though, your resignation was not predicated on any of these claims that were never proven.
Right.
It was on something completely different.
It was on, basically, I didn't realize at the same time what was going on is I was, in the eyes of the church, being disobedient, because I wasn't dropping this lawsuit against this woman.
They wanted you to do
They
that.
wanted me to drop it, that I wasn't going to drop it. I wanted justice. All I wanted them to do was publicly go and say what she did was wrong, which eventually she sent out an email saying that she was going to resign at the end of the year, and then she was going to resign at the end of the month, came the second one, and then she was gone 4 days later. So I think in their own way, she was gone, but they never said, right, they never said to me, she handled it wrong. We're sorry what she did. We're sorry you've gone through this. We're sorry that, the process wasn't followed correctly.
So they never admitted
Anything.
any wrongdoing with respect to how they treated you.
Ever.
And the lack of due process and fairness that you experienced.
No, never once. So
you must have felt completely abandoned by the church.
You're married for 40 years. They say the church Christ is your spouse and you're in the priesthood. And then you come home and you find out your spouse has moved out with somebody else and taken everything. And you're not on any bank accounts, you're not on anything, and you're left there. And nobody's talking to you. And I think the hard part was many people did talk to me. There were people that worked in the diocese that still keep in touch,
You have,
but nobody in
know.
authority.
I know for a fact that you have a very strong, broad group of friends and supporters and people that have always believed in you and always will believe in you.
Well, and I think for everybody that knew me, this wasn't even an issue. That's why I thought it was so stupid. Like, this will get cleared up in a few days. When they look at anything, I mean, I really did have a 40-year clean. I saw my record from the diocese. I had nothing. It was a clean record.
How fat is your employment?
It was like this because it was letters people wrote of support of me and stuff like that. And you know, I've lived in this town. I've never left. And I think twice since I've been here, somebody has given me a look or kind of made a sneer. And I knew both of them, and I probably know too much about them that I just looked and said, oh, well, I used to be a people pleaser. And I learned through this that I used to also think everybody was good. And I don't think I let me tell you, that's how nice. Well, listen, I'm a slow learner because I thought everybody's good, everybody's salvageable. You know, you don't adopt a kid just because. It's partly due to the fact I thought I could save everybody. And I learned, and now I realize there are people in this world that are mean and evil and I don't want to become negative about that. I don't want to look and say, oh, you know, just poor me, look at me, and or what I went through. I just look sometimes and I go, wow, I survived an assassination attempt and I'm good. My relationship with God is stronger than it's ever been. My relationship with people, even in town here, I get called all the time. Will you come and say a prayer? Will you come and do this and that? And I go, yes, but just know I'm not coming as Father Craig, you know, I'm coming as Craig Harrison. Yeah, and prayer is prayer.
So how did you turn it around? And what are you doing with what you learned from it today?
Well, that's the hard part. The turning around, I can't really put a finger on when. I think when you're in pain and you're suffering, there comes a time when you have a choice to say, I can't live like this anymore. Thinking about this all the time, thinking about what people think, and a time when you say, I got to start living. And when I chose to start living, which is about 3 years ago, I took back my life, and I had to create a new my identity. I thought, oh, who I am is Father Craig. That's who I am. That's who everybody knows. That's my persona. And it wasn't. I found out people didn't care. People loved me as Craig Harrison. When I walked in, Chris said, hi, Monsignor Craig. And I'm like, he goes, what do I call you? And I go, you can call me Craig. He goes, I don't know if I can do that. But that's the story of my life. And I look,
Smiling right now.
and I look at that.
There you go.
And I say now that, like, it's not about the title, it's about the testimony. And what I feel is, yes, I walked through fire, but I've learned great lessons. And you learn who your real friends are. And I am blessed. I have wonderful friends.
You have the best friends.
I do. And I learned, who am I serving? And I really had to come across, am I serving God or am I serving even an institution? Though I love my church. I'm Catholic. I love my faith. I encourage everybody to go that way and do this. I've also learned that suffering is an important part of life, and it either can destroy you or set you free. And I look at Padre Pio, he's one of my favorite saints. The suffering he went through, he was suspended for most of his priesthood. And then all of a sudden, he dies and we have him as a saint. Not that I'm going for sainthood. I don't think I'm going to be close about that. Saint Craig, how does that sound?
That sounds pretty good.
But, you know, some of my friends, like,
But we know there's rules for that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Let's hope they follow the rules.
Yes, wouldn't it be nice? But my friends, I still have friends who are bishops, priests that we get together regularly, cardinals in Rome. When I go to Rome, I have some friends there that I get together with.
And how do they react to this?
They just ignore
Do they
it.
just
They
kinda
ignore
go,
it
"I
all.
can't
They
believe
go,
it"? Doesn't
yeah.
make any difference.
Most of them just know me, so they just know that
Yeah.
as that. And I think one of the biggest ones I do is I learned you got to forgive, forgive, and forgive. If you hold on to the anger and the hurt, it only takes toll on you, your health, your everything. And I let it go. I had 7 kidney stones taken out. They had to surgically remove them
Ouch.
because they were large. And so I was reading Louise Hay, she's a psychologist, her book, and she said, what causes kidney stones? And it said anger. So when I went in to see the surgeon and he says, I'm going to have to surgically remove them, I said, okay, I named them. And he took them, I have them in a
For
little
each
jar.
person?
I have names on them.
Oh,
Yes.
I love that. Did you keep them?
Yes.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
feel like I've released
Are
some
they
of
in a
the,
little jar?
they
Do
are.
you just, like,
And
every
sometimes I
dinner
pick
session
it up and
around?
shake it. Yeah. And,
Does it make you feel better?
but you know what's nice? I noticed
You brought 'em in.
they're dissolving.
Oh,
And I love that.
are they in water? Or?
They're in some kind of chemical, I
So they're
think.
going away.
But I like that.
Just
They're
as
just,
you're.
and they're not in me
That's right.
because I do it. So I learned that.
Was there something that you said at one point you decided you were going to just not let this define you?
Yeah.
anymore? Was it a particular moment that you decided that, or was it just a whole
I think
progression?
I think I was tired of the mental fatigue of always trying to think and think revenge. I thought when I learned a couple of the names of people who said things about me, one of them gave a 20-minute Facebook about how wonderful I was and how I could never have done this and all this. And 3 weeks later, he was on, I think, the payroll list that he'd. I'm going,
hand out for money.
yeah,
from the
and I
church?
saw him the other day. I was walking down the street and I saw him. I wanted to go up and say hello,
Oh, okay.
but I think he would have ran.
Okay, you saw him. Did anything register in your heart?
No, you know what?
Was it blank?
It was not only blank, it was pity. I
Oh,
thought,
good.
how sad
You're over it.
that, yeah, and that's, I feel like I'm at, and now that the diocese is in this big bankruptcy thing,
That's right. I read that they filed bankruptcy on July the 1st.
Yeah.
The president of the diocese.
yeah,
But they
and
still have something like at least $50 million in assets.
Hmm.
But they file bankruptcy because they claim that they have so many claims against them now that it's equivalent to the amount of assets that they have. We will see.
yeah, and I don't know how all that works either, but
Yeah, I know the lawyer that's representing the church in the bankruptcy, but I haven't talked to him about that.
yeah, and I don't know how all that works. And it's just sad to me. I mean, I worked hard to raise some of that money for the projects in the building and that. And I still support. I got grandkids at Garces in St. Francis. I still support, the Catholic things. When you say that though, I think I look back and I think I'm proud of my service for the 35 years in active ministry. And I want to be a good layperson and not be like, feel sorry for me and that. I never once commented publicly about anybody or anything. And people said to me, why didn't you stand up and defend yourself? I go, it's not how it works. I said, I did nothing wrong and it's going to show itself. And in the end, I actually think it has, because I know what's happened to some of the people and I know what's happening in general. And I look and go, it's silent justice,
Mhm.
but I'm in a good
You
place.
believe in karma, Craig?
I do.
I
I would like to say,
karma.
karma is but I don't know if I can say that on the air. Yeah.
Starts with a B.
Yes, that one, yes.
We don't want to talk about that.
What I believe is that when you sow goodness, goodness comes back to you. That doesn't mean you won't go through difficult times. That doesn't mean you won't suffer in life. How would your parents, and you're good and you raise your kids good, and one of your kids gets in a car accident and dies, does that mean that God did all that? I don't believe in that kind of God. I just believe in the universe that our God is a creator and there's lessons I learned. Let me tell you, you want to destroy your ego? Have false accusations made about you where you're on the front page of the paper.
Above the fold.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
And multiple, I had a grandchild, I think he was 4 at the time and he couldn't read it. And he goes, Papa, you're famous. You're in the paper all the time. And I was like, good thing he can't read, you know. But I
But
look
he
back at
knows
the
you.
pain, and the pain has made me a better person. It's made me who I am today. And I'm happy with who I am. And even in my faith, I can't be even angry at my church, because I look and say, I'm not the only one that's ever suffered injustice there. There's many different. I was just reading the paper the other day about these graves of children that they found, and I think can't remember where it was, and they found that they had been in homes that were run by the church, that, you know, these kids were killed or whatever. And I'm going, yes, there's all of that, but I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I still see the light of Christ and the Eucharist in my faith and that, and I have to look beyond the politics and all of that. And so I'm able to do that and separate myself and still celebrate that. And I know I feel I'm blessed, because I feel I'm an influencer. That's the word they use, where I do a morning coffee with Jesus, and
And I subscribe to
I
that.
got thousands of followers, and I'm happy with that.
Do you
And
really have
yes,
thousands?
it's fun.
Wow,
It's
I
fun.
love them. That's where you're on to do a video.
And then I speak.
to us.
I speak. A group called Reflections has me speak once a month, and I speak on overcoming grief and hardship, and how do you have a positive attitude to life and see the good when you're older and you're sick. And it sells out every month, and I feel blessed to be a part of that. That I still have a platform to share the good news of Christ. I don't do it as a priest. I don't do anything as a
Do you
priest.
feel like you're able to, when people come to you with problems and you're helping them out with their personal issues, do you feel like you're better able to
Oh.
relate to them now than you were before when you
Oh,
wore the black robe?
yeah. Oh, 100%. I think when my sister died,
Mm.
I learned deeper more about grief. I'd probably done hundreds of funerals by then. But when she died, I learned about personal grief, and it transformed the way I even did services, because whoever that person was, that's somebody's mother, father, sister, brother, and I knew that loss. And I think this has changed much. I'm trying to be now a human being and not a human doer. Like, not just
I like
doing,
that.
it's not doing things, but being present to people when they come, hearing them. What do I know other than I can sit there and be one with them and say, you know, you're loved, and this too will pass. I love that quote, because there were periods of times I didn't think this would pass, and it passed. And
Do you feel like you went through a long, dark time
oh,
and now you're out the
oh,
other end?
I feel not only am I out there, then I exploded out of a cannon to where even the universe, the world, I'm learning so much. I meant that I feel like everything I used to know wasn't even true, because I based it on what everybody told me. And now it's like, no, I want to learn. I want to know.
You're
And I'm
seeing it for
open.
yourself with
Yeah.
open eyes.
Yeah. And so, you know, and I'm full of gratitude. I feel I'm the most blessed man there is. And again, it's why hold on? You know, somebody told me once, you know, you can't drive looking in the rearview mirror, you'll wreck. And so I just keep looking forward and going, I'm 65 years old. This is going to be the best time of my life. And I spend it with my kids, my grandkids, my friends. I travel, I write, I speak, I see people every day.
That's
And
fantastic.
so I'm blessed.
Well, I feel like we've been blessed by you coming in
Well.
here and telling us your story and telling us what happened to you and how you dealt with it. And I'm so glad that it all ended up in a positive way in your life, because you bless all of us. And I'm so glad that you're in our community.
I forgot people were even listening. It was like just talking with my friend. And I was like, oh my God, there are people out there listening.
It's just fun to
And I hope
talk to
Ralph's
you.
listening.
This is great.
And Ralph's
it's
always
funny.
been a good
You
supporter of
know how
mine.
you said, don't look in the rearview mirror? Robert E. Coyle, Federal Courthouse of Fresno, is named after me. Judge Coyle always told me, Terry, never look in the rearview mirror unless you see red lights flashing.
Oh, I like that. That's a good way to
You gotta
go.
worry about that. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thanks for coming. And
Was there anything else, last words you want to say in the last minute?
I would just say is for anybody out there, no matter what you're going through, whatever trials or tribulations, that if you stick and know yourself well enough, you'll get through and the light comes and there's a new day, and it's a better day. And you're a better person because you went through it. The people I admire the most are people who've gone through recovery from drugs, alcohol abuse, people who have gone through the loss of their children and all of this, and they're still standing. And they try to bring somebody, the Patty Reeses, the people in this world that I see put it back in, they're my inspiration. So I just tell people, hold on. It's not over. It's not over. The best is yet to come.
Well, you are an inspiration to me.
Wow.
And I thank you again for being here on the
Please
show
say hi to
today.
Barry for me.
I will. I'm going to tell him that I got my
Your own
very
copy.
Coffee with Jesus book signed by Craig Harrison.
I thought
He'll be
about
jealous.
writing a new one for people at night, Tequila with the Trinity, but I think that's maybe going overboard.
Could you just write on here, P.S. You are my favorite Goldner?
I will.
He'll like that, or at least he'll give me a hard time with it. Thank you so much. This has been really interesting. And I want to thank all of our listeners for being with us this hour. We're going to come back in a little bit with some more fascinating discussions about the law and other issues.
Well, I hope it was good for you. It's felt very good for me.
Hi, everybody. This is Teri Goldner, and welcome back to the Ralph Bailey Show. And Ralph, if you're watching, I hope you're enjoying today's show, and I hope everybody else is too. You know, on our next guest that we're going to have, we're going to talk about something that's in the news, that's a legal issue, that is, I think, fascinating. And when I first read about it, I thought, oh, I don't even know if I should talk about this because people are going to think that it's kind of nutty. But we're going to talk about the case of Brigitte Macron and Emmanuel Macron, the First Lady and the President of France, who recently filed a case against a podcaster named Candace Owens. She's been described as a conservative, sometimes some say she's a right-wing podcaster who has joined forces with a journalist in France. Her show that the First Lady of France is really a man. And I know it sounds wacky and crazy, and that's what I heard. She and her husband have now filed a lawsuit in Delaware 2 weeks ago, and it's a long, long lawsuit, and it's wild and fascinating, and we're going to break it down after the break.
And AM 1180 KERN. I'm Bill Robbins, Bakersfield Police on the lookout for a missing 2-year-old girl. They say that Kiara Hernandez was abducted by her mother, 32-year-old Karen Hernandez. They were last seen a little after 2 o'clock Monday afternoon in the 600 block of 24th Street. Kiara is about 2 feet tall with a light complexion. Anyone who sees them is asked to call 911. A person severely wounded and 2 people arrested after a shooting in Oildale. Kern County Sheriff's deputies were called to the area of North Chester Avenue and Ferguson Avenue at around 1 o'clock Friday morning for a reported shooting. 34-year-old Marlon Ledesma and 47-year-old Juan Garolo were booked into the Lerdo jail. Records show they've been charged with several gang and firearm-related felonies. The victim is hospitalized with severe trauma from a gunshot wound. A dispute between neighbors over loud music leads to one of them being shot dead in the backyard of a home in northwest Bakersfield. BPD called to the 7200 block of Rome Drive at around 12:30 Sunday morning about an argument over loud music. The two fought but were separated. Officers got a call about an hour later on one neighbor banging on the front door. And about 10 minutes later, they also got a call saying that a shooting had happened. Police say a man in the backyard was dead from gunshot wounds. All involved parties have reportedly been cooperating with investigators. Highway 166 has been closed since the weekend due to the Gifford fire. That fire has burned over 65,000 acres. That's according to CAL FIRE. Fire crews from multiple agencies were brought in and evacuation orders have gone out. There are 40 engines, 13 dozers, 12 hand crews, and 5 water tenders on site. I'm Bill Robbins in the KERN newsroom with news every half hour or when it breaks on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
What do you think? This is the Army where you shoot them a mile away? You gotta get a post like this. Bing! You blow their brains all over your nice Ivy League suit.
It's the Ralph Bailey Show on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
Now make sure you leave the house when you make the call. You understand me? You hear me? Call from an outside line. I mean it.
Call in or text to 661-842-KERN. That's 661-842-5376. Listen live at KERNradio.com. Now, the host you've been waiting all day for. Live from the KERN studio, here's Ralph Bailey.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Ralph Bailey Show on Tuesday. This is Teri Goldner, and I am sitting in for Ralph Bailey today. I know I probably look like Ralph with long hair, some people would say, but maybe not. But I do hope that Ralph is listening and maybe watching today and that he's approving of the show so far. I'm very happy to introduce our next guest, and I know that he's on the line. I'd like to see if I can hear his voice. Craig, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi, Craig. How are
How
you?
doing?
Good.
All is well.
I'm going to introduce you now, if you don't mind. I'd like to introduce to our listeners Craig Edmondson. Craig is an attorney, a very experienced attorney in Bakersfield, and he's had cases all over the place. He is particularly experienced. He has his own law firm here, but he handled a very high-profile case in defamation many, many years ago that he won, and it was huge, and it actually made national news because it was so big, and I'm going to let him tell you about it. But I've known Craig for a long, long time, and I can vouch for him. He is a fantastic attorney, and I'm so glad that he is here today to talk to us about defamation and one case in particular that's really hit the news, and that is the case of Macron versus Owens, and specifically Emmanuel Macron and Brigitte Macron versus Candace Owens et al., meaning and others. So welcome, Craig. Thank you for being here. Would you mind telling us about the big case that you handled? And one, I might say.
Oh, my word, thanks. I'll try to do it in a nutshell. So this goes back to 1989. There was a book, virtually nobody read it. It was called The Senator Must Die. And in the book, the author concluded that a man with a camera gun who had been standing next to Robert F. Kennedy at the Astro Hotel in June of 1968 was the assassin and not Sirhan Sirhan. And so nobody read the book, nobody knew about it. And then all of a sudden, the Globe tabloid published internationally, a front page article accusing Mr. Kawar, the plaintiff, the victim, of assassinating RFK. So Mr. Kawar was a student journalist in Southern California, very interested in politics, was attending the inauguration June 5th of '68, the Ambassador Hotel of RFK. You know, the celebration of the winning the California primary. And time went on, years passed, and 21 years later, somebody walks into he becomes a farmer in Arvin, a grape grower, and 21 years later, friends of his call him up laughing and say, hey, you killed Robert Kennedy. That was the start of the case, and it took years to wind its way through the court. Ultimately went to trial in Santa Monica against the Globe. Very interesting case.
And what happened?
The jury found that the Globe acted with malice. That they weren't. Globe's position was that they were doing a book review and trying to rely on a doctrine which had not been approved by the U.S. Supreme Court, just in some federal circuits, called the neutral reportage doctrine. And they tried to say, hey, we're just doing a book review. We didn't take sides. We didn't, accuse him of anything. And jury awarded over $1 million, and which was a significant verdict, especially for defamation at that time. Found the Globe acted with malice and had no legal protections for defamation. And then that started a whole appellate process and went all the way to the California Supreme Court, which took several more years. It was about a 8-9 year process. Finally, the California Supreme Court upheld the verdict, and the rest is history.
That's wonderful. So what an odyssey for you and your client. You said it was about 9 years from start to finish?
My word, it was.
Oh,
so
geez.
he lived here he lived in Bakersfield the entire time. He was on the news a lot, and he felt very vindicated. And he passed away just last year after a very long and rewarding life.
Oh, well, may he rest in peace. Well, I'm glad that he got justice through the system. I don't know if you were listening to our previous speaker, Craig Harrison, who spoke to us about his ordeal. And my opinion was he did not get justice in the system. And we talked about that briefly. I know that you're familiar with that. But I'm glad that hopefully you got paid on the defamation case. Did you get paid, Craig?
Yes, we certainly did, with interest for all those 10 years.
Oh my gosh, was the interest more than the amount of the judgment?
No, but it was probably 30 to 40%.
Wow, that's funny. Well, I want to talk to you about another defamation case because I know that you know all about defamation, and that's the case of Macron versus Owens. I was floored when I heard about this case being filed. It got filed on July the 23rd of last month in Delaware Superior Court, believe it or not. And I was kind of flabbergasted, like, whoa, what is the president and first lady of France suing an American in Delaware for? And then I read the complaint, which is actually 219 pages long. It is quite I don't know what you call it, but it's a wild and woolly story that is being told in those pleadings. And I thought, the perfect person to talk to about this is Craig Edmondson. So did you have an opportunity to look at the complaint, Craig?
I did have an opportunity, and I did read virtually all of it. There was so much repetition, and you obviously being a former federal judge, know that judges like brevity. They don't like long-winded claims. So I was kind of getting a headache, but I slogged through it.
Oh, good. Well, I know that you were on a cruise and you're in South Carolina right now. So hopefully your headache has lifted and you're ready to talk about it. For our listeners, this is a case of Brigitte Macron has this podcaster, Candace Owens, has said many times on her podcast that Brigitte Macron is really a man. That's the whole kind of premise of a 6-part series that she did. And she's had a lot of other kinds of podcasts where she has referred to this. And she's been working with a journalist in France who allegedly has been investigating this, I think, for at least 8, possibly up to 10 years, who is convinced that what they're saying about Mrs. Macron is true. And so actually, Mrs. Macron and her brother sued another 2 journalists in France who were saying the same thing. And they went to trial in France recently. And that trial ended up in Mrs. Macron's favor. She won, but then it went to the Court of Appeals in France. And the Court of Appeals on, I believe it was July the 10th, ended up vacating that judgment, reversing that judgment, saying that no, those two people who said those things about Mrs. Macron, that they really did not defame her, because under French law, if you have a good faith belief that what you're saying is true, and there's kind of a reasonable basis for saying it, or sort of reasonable basis for saying it, then that's considered your First Amendment, your free speech rights, not First Amendment, because I don't have First Amendment, but your free speech rights in France. And so they ended up saying, nope, you don't know them anything, and they were vindicated in that court, at least the Court of Appeals. So now Mrs. Macron has appealed the reversal of the case, and now it's going to be in front of the French Supreme Court, which I think is really interesting. But in the meantime, these two people that have been saying these things about Mrs. Macron are free to repeat what they're saying without fear of being penalized in any way. So that case is going on there. And then at the same time, Mrs. Macron and her husband filed this case up in Delaware. So Craig, the allegations are essentially, they have a whole lot of allegations, and I'll let you talk about some of them. But first of all, why in the world would they file in Delaware? What do you think?
Well, supposedly Candace Owens LLC, whatever the name of it is organized and filed in Delaware. So as we know, many corporations have their headquarters and are incorporated in Delaware, because it provides, it's corporation friendly. So the proper venue in a defamation case, meaning where the trial has to be held, is where the defendant resides. And in a corporation, a defendant resides where it's incorporated. And so that's why, even though she lives in Tennessee, apparently, that's why they filed in Delaware.
Very good. So it made sense for them to do it. And in fact, didn't they have to, because of the incorporation issue? They couldn't really file in Tennessee, I don't think. But Delaware gets up.
I think you're right, unless the allegation was that the statements were not made, they were in her capacity, in the course and scope of her employment, or in her capacity with her LLC. But yeah, I think that's pretty clear.
Delaware actually also has a court that they fast track some of these corporate lawsuits, and I think they have a set of judges that are specifically designated to hear these kinds of things. So I would think that this trial might go forward pretty quickly. I don't think it'll take, 3, 4, 9 years before it actually ends up being resolved. Now, I went back and I listened to some of Candace Owens' podcasts when she talked about this, including her 6-part series called Becoming Brigitte. And boy, I got to tell you, she's responded to this lawsuit in interviews, and she's been saying, basically, bring it on. She sounds like she's excited that they sued her. She claims that there is no way that they're going to win. And she says there is no possible way that this case would ever even go to trial, because she doesn't think that Mrs. Macron will subject herself to discovery. What kind of discovery do you think the defendants would want to take of a plaintiff like that, given the allegations? And would you explain what discovery is?
Well, discovery is the fact finding that the lawyers do, and evidence gathering after a lawsuit's filed leading up to a trial. So one thing they would do, obviously, would be to take the First Lady Brigitte's deposition. So that would be a very long deposition that would be taken under oath, of course, and videotaped, I'm sure, to be played at trial before a jury. So certainly they would do that. They would send all sorts of what we call document requests for production of documents. They'd ask for things such as her birth certificate. They'd ask for things. She says she was married before she married the president of France, Emmanuel Macron. So they would want to, and had 3 children from the prior marriage. They would want to get those birth certificates. none of those things have been produced to date, to my knowledge. So that would be just kind of a very, very small sampling of the discovery that would be conducted.
One of the things that people are saying about this lawsuit that I've encountered is, well, if she's really a woman, why doesn't she show pictures of her during her youth when she was a woman? And Candace Owen alleges that there simply are no photographs of her for the first 30 years, almost the first 30 years of her life. The history of her and President Macron is kind of unusual. And when you put that together along with no pictures being available, it does create kind of an odd fact pattern if it's really if what Candace Owen is saying is really even partially true. She met him allegedly when she was his drama teacher. She was 39 years old. I think the latest is that it's conceded that he was 15 at the time. Candace Owens alleges that he was 14 at the time, and they were living in the same town in France. Amiens was the name of the town. And then apparently they don't know if they had a relationship or not, but his parents eventually yanked him out of that school, took him to another school, but they continued to know each other. And then eventually, like you said, she got married. She was married at the time, and then she divorced her husband and married Mr. Macron a year later. Now, allegedly, she has 3 children by her first marriage, but only 2 of the children, one of the children, her daughter, is the only one who's willing to even talk about her mom. But everybody else is very close-mouthed about everything about Brigitte Macron's life, at least in the first 30 years of her life. So the theory is, at least the claim is, that somehow she is transgender and that she changed into a woman sometime in her 30s. So that's what the basis is. Have you taken a look at what some of the different claims are that they're making against Candace Owens in the lawsuit? Kind of what the themes are?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I've read them. Defamation and et cetera, et cetera.
What do you think is the strongest? What first of all, kind of globally, what do you think of the complaint in and of itself? And have you ever seen a 219-page defamation complaint before?
There's a first time for everything. And this is the first time.
How long did it take for you to read it, Craig? Be truthful now.
Well, I did it in 50-page parts, so and I took a few notes, but then I kind of got tired. So I don't know, a couple hours.
Oh my goodness! Could you imagine having to draft that thing?
Oh my word! Yeah, there's many grounds for what we call responsive pleadings, where the defense lawyers would file what's called a demur, motion to strike, things like that. And, in terms of the strongest, we start from knowing that defamation cases are among the hardest to win. Very, very, very difficult. Almost all of them fail. And in the last 30 years or so, many states, in fact, most states, have been enacting statutes called anti-SLAPP statutes. And basically what that is it enables a defendant to file a motion, get the case thrown out, if they think that the lawsuit is just to try to silence them, to silence and chill their First Amendment rights, so they don't say anything. So Delaware has one of those. So from the get-go, it's a very difficult case.
And is it difficult because of the standard of proof?
Well, it's difficult because the Macrons are, first of all, it's filed on behalf of both Macrons. They're both obviously public figures. They're, president and first lady. So public figures have a much higher standard of proof. So they have to prove that Candace Owens acted with malice, which in a defamation context is knowledge of falsity or reckless disregard for the truth.
Now, I've had people say, oh, it means evil intent, that you intended to hurt that person. That's not the case, is it?
That is not the case. No. So knowledge of falsity or reckless disregard of the truth. So what that means is, in other words, they have to prove that it's so clear that it's false or reckless disregard that it leaves no substantial doubt. That's a very high standard.
That sounds really hard. And does that come from the New York Times case that President Trump doesn't like?
New York Times v. Sullivan, that's
Yes.
where it comes from. So in other words, a jury could find that Owens, they could kind of be leaning towards in favor of the plaintiff, Macron, and they could find that she acted negligently, but not maliciously for defamation purposes.
Well, when we come back from the break, we're going to take a little bit of a break now, and we're going to talk after the break about what some of the key themes are of the allegedly defamatory statements in the complaint. Will you be ready to talk about that after the break?
Certainly.
Great. Well, thank you, Craig. Hang on the line and we'll keep going. We'll see you all after the break.
News Talk 96.1 and AM.
Welcome back, everybody. Is there feedback going on? Are we okay? Okay, welcome back, everybody, from the break. This is the Ralph Bailey Show. This is Teri Goldner, and I am on the line with a brilliant attorney from Bakersfield named Craig Edmondson, who knows all about defamation law and other things, and he is calling in from the beautiful state of South Carolina. Craig, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Great. So let's kind of break down the themes of this case. When I first started looking at this, I thought this was a straight up defamation case, but it's not. He's alleging similar, kind of different type of causes of action. His primary one, of course, is defamation. Will you explain to the listeners what defamation is and what you have to show to prove defamation?
Well, defamation is a false statement about somebody else, basically a lie, accusing them of being something or having done something that's defamatory, false, and damaging to the reputation.
And does it have to cause financial damage to them, or is emotional damage enough?
It depends what type of case it is. If it's But if it's a private person against a private person, it doesn't have to. The injured party doesn't have to prove financial damage. If they're suing a media defendant, ABC, CBS, ESPN, something like that, and they did not demand a retraction within 20 days of filing within 20 days, then they're limited to economic losses, meaning financial losses. No recovery of pain and suffering, meaning or emotional distress, things like that.
Okay. So in this case, the themes of kind of the defamatory statements seem to be, she was alleging sort of a identity theft and gender misrepresentation, saying that Candace Owens repeatedly claimed that Brigitte Macron was born a male as her brother, and she actually took her brother's, well, it's kind of complicated. I think I'll uncomplicate it after the break, because it's kind of a complicated fact pattern, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it is. It's very unusual.
Okay, well, we've got 8 seconds before the break, so I'm just going to wait and we'll uncomplicate it after the break. Thanks, Craig. We'll talk to you in 5 minutes.
Cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code RADIO for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code RADIO for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
We have an employee that we all adore, young Lisa, and her husband recently retired. And right before he did that, and I didn't coerce her, she listens to the program, she hears Daniel Petrie on Thursdays, and he became a client at Messmaker and Petrie Wealth Advisors. And if you're staying retirement in the mug like I strongly suggest you call Daniel at 395-9400, 395-9400, or tune in on Thursdays when he joins us at 4:30, talking about retirement, the stocks, deficit, what's going on in DC, and most importantly, how it impacts you and your wallet. Tune in on Thursdays, 4:30 for Daniel Petrie with Messmaker and Petrie Wealth Advisors.
This broadcast is for informational purposes only. Does not constitute a solicitation or offer to buy or sell any security, future option, or other financial instrument, or to offer or provide any investment advisory or other services to any person in any jurisdiction by Daniel Petrie or NPWA Inc., DBA Messmaker and Petrie Wealth Advisors. Any views expressed in this broadcast by us are prepared based upon the information available to us at the time, and we are under no obligation to update our views.
The Armstrong and Getty Show, weekdays noon to 2 on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN. Now, back to the Ralph Bailey Show.
Welcome back to the Ralph Bailey Show. It's Tuesday afternoon. We're heading into the last half hour. This is Teri Goldner sitting in for Ralph Bailey, the one and only Ralph Bailey. On the line is a fantastic attorney named Craig Edmondson, who is here from Bakersfield, but today he is having fun in South Carolina and he's on the phone. Craig, are you still there?
Yep, I'm still here, Jerry.
Okay, great. So I wanted to talk about kind of some of the claims here in this case, the case that Brigitte Macron and her husband have filed against Candace Owens and her LLCs. They're basically alleging defamation with some kind of different sort of themes, but the theme is really that Brigitte Macron was born a male as someone named Jean-Michel Trogneux, who was actually her brother, that she transitioned to becoming a female. She stole a female identity, and then she ended up marrying Mr. Macron under kind of false circumstances. And she's really, like I said, she's doubled down on this. She says she would stake her entire professional reputation on the fact that Brigitte Macron is in fact a man. And that's a quote from a post that she made on X. So she's really saying that this person was born as Jean-Michel Trogneux, who took the name of Brigitte Macron. I think that in and of itself would be defamation. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, it's certainly defamatory, assuming that Brigitte Macron, her position is correct. Assuming she's not a man, then it would definitely be. It's definitely defamatory.
Now, one of the things that people have said to me is, have asked me, well, if she's really not a man, would it be really easy for her to prove it? And why doesn't she just prove it by showing pictures of herself when she was young? But they have refused to do that. Are they under any legal compulsion to come up with photographs just because somebody says that about her?
Well, they have the burden of proof in the case. The Brigitte Macron does. So she has to prove that she's not a man, and on the other hand, truth is a complete defense for Candace Owens. So if somehow Candace Owens were hypothetically able to prove that her position is correct, that Brigitte Macron is in fact a man, then that's a complete defense.
This is crazy, don't you think? It's just kind of insane sort of thing. I mean, is she supposed to take off all her clothes and say, see, I really am a woman? Or does she have to go to a doctor and have a doctor certify that she has female parts? I mean, it's kind of crazy. How do you prove you're a woman if you're a woman other than having to show your private parts? How do you do that? That's what's so nuts about this.
You're starting with birth certificate.
Okay.
So her birth certificate, which apparently, in the complaint, there's a like a photo of like a birth announcement, like you would see in the paper a long time ago, and but apparently no birth certificate has ever been produced, nor birth certificates for the children that she had by her first husband. This is what Owens is saying.
But does that just mean that Brigitte Macron has refused to give those to Candace Owens, or does it mean that they don't exist?
It could be either one, but in the case, certainly Owens and her attorneys will do whatever they can if they can subpoena the appropriate government authorities internationally through the Hague Convention and in France to get birth certificates, or have them produce all documents reflecting that, all birth certificates under oath. They'll certainly do that. So.
I would think that being the first lady of France, it would be really easy for her to get whatever government documents she needed to prove her identity. It's the issue of, it's kind of, it's offensive to have to say that you have to prove that you're a woman when you're a woman. I just think it's kind of crazy that the burden is on her, but it is because she's the one that filed the lawsuit, right?
Well, there is, exactly, and there is such a thing. It's almost humorous, and we've never encountered a case like this where this has to be done. But as you know, that in civil cases, if an injured person files a lawsuit to recover for injuries, the defense has the right to hire a doctor called an independent or defense medical exam. And they normally get one exam. So normally that's for something orthopedic, neurologic, but in this particular case, kind of unprecedented, but certainly a defense medical exam by the appropriate, whether it be an OBGYN or I think when you file a lawsuit, you put your injuries and your condition at issue, and that gives the defense the right to conduct an examination. So in this case, I don't know, we've never seen anything like that.
The fact that Brigitte Macron would file this lawsuit, to me, is kind of pretty strong evidence that she is in fact a woman. Because who would put themselves through something like that? I can't imagine having to subject myself to an independent medical examiner to show that I had female parts. So in that sense, I feel terrible for her. On the other hand, you have to always look at the other side. If it's not true, then boy, she's definitely going to lose this case. Now, I have read a lot about this in the French newspapers, and what they are, it's kind of interesting. This is a big deal over in France, and it has been a big deal over in France. It hasn't been reported as much here in the United States, but people are, how can I say this? I kind of lost my train of thought there. With Brigitte Macron, she's always been a very, very private person. And that's why this really surprises me that she would do something like this. And the legal commentators are saying, those who have commented on the lawsuit in the United States are saying that Brigitte Macron is going to lose this case. Why do they say that? They say it because the burden of proof is so high for her to be able to prove that she's been defamed, and that it's very unlikely that she's going to win. And so if it's really going to be hard for her to win because the burden of proof is so very high because she has to prove malice, then what was the point of filing the lawsuit in the first place? Just to make a point, do you think?
Well, it could be certainly to clear her name and expecting that she would win, also to hoping that would silence Candace Owens so that she wouldn't be publishing any more statements or podcasts with the same accusations.
So it'd be, see, I've proven that I'm a woman, now leave me alone. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
That must be what she's thinking.
One of the other claims that is in the lawsuit is, and I thought maybe it'd be nice if you could explain it, it's false light, invasion of privacy. What is false light in the context of defamation law?
Well, false light, I'm not aware of a false light invasion of privacy jury verdict. I'm sure they're there. A lot of times they're combined with defamation, claims or causes of action. But false light is when a statement portray somebody in a false or very highly offensive light or highly offensive manner. So it could be false or it could be true, but still portray them in such a highly offensive manner as to give rise to a claim for false light privacy.
So
It's very vague. It's very vague. There's not nearly as much law on it. And again, I'm not aware of any. There's probably someone out there, but I'm not aware of any big verdict for
false light. Now, if you were representing Candace Owens, just hypothetically speaking, what defenses would you rely on?
Well, I would rely on that Brigitte Macron is a public figure, so I would hammer the fact that she has to prove malice, to prove that my client knew the statements were false or was acted in reckless disregard for the truth. And I'd also argue that, and Owens does this, and it's, as you know, in the lawsuit, in the complaint, it quotes verbatim what excerpts from what she said on the different Becoming Brigitte podcast episodes. And a lot of times she'll say, I believe, or in my opinion. So to win a defamation case, she has to be asserting it as fact. And conversely, there's many times when, including in interviews where she, like you said at the beginning of the show, she says it's a fact and she stake her whole professional reputation on it. But in the episodes, there's a lot of my opinion or I believe. So, it's kind of a murky area there. Jury could find that this is really her belief and her opinion. She's not declaring this as 100% fact.
So
she might also argue that, because she says she based all the allegations on the book by the author named Coussard, who you mentioned spent 8 years or so investigating. She might try to argue that all of this is simply part of a book review. That probably wouldn't gain much traction, though.
what about the law that when somebody says something that's defamatory about someone, and then person A says it, and then person B repeats it, isn't person B just as responsible for defamation because they're repeating what person A said?
No, not always. They still have to, especially in this case, still have to adhere to. There's common law in California that said that way before New York Times v. Sullivan. That just exactly what you said. If you repeat a lie, you're equally responsible as the original liar or defamer. But a lot of that's changed since these cases have evolved, where public figures have to prove malice, knowledge of falsity, or reckless disregard of the truth, and all these anti-SLAPP statutes, which get most of the lawsuits thrown out at the very beginning.
So let's talk about the anti-SLAPP lawsuits and the anti-SLAPP statutes. Don't those come under First Amendment and free speech protections, where it could be challenged as a SLAPP lawsuit? And if yes, could you explain what exactly a SLAPP lawsuit is and how it might fit into this scenario?
Well, the anti-SLAPP statutes, SLAPP is an acronym for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. That's a fancy way of saying they think the lawsuit was filed to shut people up, to chill their First Amendment rights, so they wouldn't speak freely the truth, even if it happens to be very bad about someone or some group. So they were conceived with good intent, but the courts have kind of run away with them and very, very hard to get past them when they're filed. So the anti-SLAPP statute in California has two prongs. That the burden is on the plaintiff filing the lawsuit to prove two things. That it has to do with public concern or a matter of public interest. So obviously this is, and that they can state a prima facie case of evidence, meaning if their allegations are believed, that would constitute defamation. So if the plaintiff can establish that, then the burden shifts to the defendant to tell the court why the lawsuit needs to be thrown out at the very beginning, like right after the opening kickoff.
So a SLAPP lawsuit, in this case, the SLAPP lawsuit would be a challenge to Brigitte Macron's lawsuit, saying that the only reason Brigitte Macron sued was to shut Candace Owens up, right?
Right. It would be an anti-SLAPP motion to dismiss. And in the event Owens prevailed on that motion, then Owens would be entitled, case would be dismissed, and Owens would be entitled to all of her attorney's fees.
And could Candace Owens, if she were to file a SLAPP motion, could she say that all of her comments and things that she said about Brigitte Macron are just public commentary on a political figure? And would that fall within the protected speech of the First Amendment, do you think?
No, I don't. Just to say it's public comment, I don't think that would. I don't think that would suffice. But
okay.
Based on the nature of the allegations.
So do you think that, now what is it about the nature though that you think would make it, she'd lose on a SLAPP motion like that if she said that as her claim? Because this goes beyond political commentary.
Macron should be able to prevail, I would think, on a defeat Owens if she filed a SLAPP motion to throw the case out, because Macron would just tell the court, hey, my position is, I'm clearly a woman, so this is defamatory. It's damaging my reputation by accusing me of being a man, and that I'm accusing me of being my husband's father and accusing me of incest and all of these and statutory rape and all the things that are in the complaint. So she would, so I would think if Owens filed such a motion, the court should deny it and allow the case to proceed.
Because the claims that are being made in the lawsuit are so outrageous, right? Or so personal.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, they're basically libel per se, so you don't have to have any special, meaning libel on its face, you don't have to have any special knowledge of the parties to know that when you accuse a woman of being a man and lying about it, that's very bad, that's defamatory.
So you don't have to prove that they were damaged by you saying that false statement about them. Just saying it is enough, right?
Right, and damage, something that's libelous per se necessarily is damaging. So if you accuse a woman of being a man, that obviously is, causes emotional distress, harm to reputation.
What do you think, Craig? This is kind of, I mean, it's related, but what do you think about this? Is it defamatory to call somebody transgender? Do you think that's libel per se in this day and age?
Well, if the person isn't transgender, it may be defamatory.
Okay. We're getting into all different kinds of things in this lawsuit. She's talked about, like you said, she's alleging that there's incest involved and all these other crazy things. I was really shocked when I heard the things that she was saying, and especially when I read them in the lawsuit. What's your final take on this? Do you think that Brigitte is going to win, or do you think that Candace is going to be able to get a defense verdict after it goes to a jury trial?
You know, I would think it's kind of a crapshoot. You know, you would think the facts would be on Brigitte's side, but as you mentioned, you know, when discovery happens and her deposition is taken, who knows what the composition of the jury is going to be? They could say she was negligent, but not malicious.
My goodness. Well, we'll have to follow this one, and I'm sure that I know the French media is following it, and I think the American media is going to be following it. So I'm going to put this on my list of cases to follow, and maybe we can talk again about this in the future. We'll have to make some bets on what the outcome would be. But Craig, thank you very much for joining the show today. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you and to be able to kind of see how you think about this case, because I know you have such great expertise in all of it. And I'm just so proud of you getting that big verdict way back when. You really set the standard for our community in that. So thank you very much, Craig. And I hope you have a wonderful time in South Carolina. And I'm jealous. Is the weather nice there?
Weather's pretty nice. A little rain today. Well, you're welcome. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, Craig. Talk to you later.
Bye, Terry.
Bye-bye.
News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN. Carpet Outlet.
The 99 on Rosedale Highway.
Carpet Outlet Plus. Every day is sale day.
Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers. And sometimes it's an overworked accountant who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details. I need a coffee. And you need LifeLock, because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Real estate investors, ready to earn steady monthly income? Check out Icon America's high-yield student housing and multifamily fund with cash flow starting at 7.25%. 1031 eligibility and no high broker fees means more money for you. Invest in properties near the University of Utah and Arizona all the way to the Carolinas. Visit icon1031.com or call 800-93-EXCHANGE. Again, that's 800-93-EXCHANGE. Past performance is no indication of future results. Investments involve risk. Consult your financial advisor before making financial decisions.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance.
For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-743-8080. That's 1-800-743-8080. Or go to SelectQuote.com. 1-800-743-8080. That's 1-800-743-8080.
SelectQuote. We shop. You save. Full details on example policies at selectquote.com/commercials.
The Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, live 9 to noon. Now back to the Ralph Bailey Show on News Talk 96.1 and AM 1180 KERN.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the last few minutes of the Ralph Bailey Show for Tuesday. This is Teri Goldner sitting in for Ralph Bailey. If you recognize that song that was at the break, that's the song Lola by the Kinks. And I selected that one because it's related to the last discussion that we had with attorney Craig Edmondson. So I hope you've enjoyed today's show. We've talked about a lot of things. I think the takeaway is it was a cold day at the Coldplay concert for the CEO and his girlfriend or alleged girlfriend. I think the takeaway from that is don't bring if you're a married person, do not bring your girlfriend or boyfriend to a concert, because everything you do in a public forum is public. There's no right to privacy there. And then I also want to thank Jay Rosenleib from Klein and Teri Goldner for talking to us about the Coldplay case and about the right to privacy in the workplace from the employer's perspective and also from the employee's perspective. We do have a right to privacy, but not always. And then finally, I want to thank Craig Harrison and I want to thank Craig Edmondson for being my guest today. They were both fascinating guests. I really, really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you. Thank you very much for being the guest today. And thank you, Ralph Bailey, for allowing me to step in for you. Have a great day, everybody.